Section 11 of Great Events in the History of North and South America. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Great Events in the History of North and South America by Charles Goodrich. United States Indians, Their Tribes and Wars, Origin of the American Indians. Although not in precise accordance with the plan of this work, yet on account of the interest which attaches to the subject, we devote a few pages to an exposition of the various theories advanced in relation to the origin of the Indian tribes existing at the time the English settled the country. These theories have been various according to the whims or predilections of the authors. Some have seen in them an original species of the human race, unconnected with any of the nations or tribes of the Old World. Others had fancied their resemblance to this or the other people, ancient or modern, of the Eastern continent, as Hebrews, Trojans, Tartars, and the like. Voltaire and other skeptical writers have accounted for their origin, according to the first-named theory. They have considered the Indian placed in America by the hand of the Creator or by nature, just as the buffalo or the tortoise or any other animal was placed there, or just as trees and other products of vegetation that are indigenous to the soil. Thus they make no account of the apparent scriptural doctrine of the unity of the human race, the common descent from Adam. The identity of the Indian with the Hebrew or the Israelite has been conjectured by many. Reverend Thomas Thorogood, an author of the 17th century, held that opinion and endeavored to prove that the Indians were the Jews, who had been lost in the world for the space of near 2,000 years. Adair, who claims to have resided 40 years among the southern Indians, published a large quarto upon their origin, history, etc. He endeavors to prove their identity with the Jews by showing the similarity of their customs, usages, and language to those of the latter. The author of The Star in the West, Dr. Bodenoff, has followed the same thing, and thinks assuredly that the Indians are the long-lost 10 tribes of Israel. Roger Williams at one time expressed the same opinion. He writes in a letter to friends in Salem that the Indians did not come to America from the Northeast, as some had imagined, for the following reasons. 1. Their ancestors affirmed that they came from the Southwest and returned thence when they die. 2. Because they separate their women in a little wigwam by themselves at certain seasons. And 3, beside their god, Khotund, to the southwest, they hold that Nanawitnamut, a god overhead, made the heavens and the earth, and he avers also that he, the writer, had found some taste of affinity with the Hebrews. The similarity of practices, or even of a number of terms in a language, can, however, be no conclusive proof of sameness of origin. It may be merely accidental, or in respect to customs more particularly, may be owing to similarity of circumstances. Who will pretend that different people, when placed under similar circumstances, will not have similar wants, and hence similar actions? That like wants will not prompt like exertions, and like causes produce not like effects. The slight resemblances existing or fancied to exist between the Indians and the Israelites may be owing to a cause like the one pointed out. As to the language of the Indians, Mr. William Wood, an old writer, says, some have thought that they might be of the dispersed Jews, because some of their words be near unto the Hebrew, but by the same rule, they may conclude them to be of the gleanings of all nations, because they have words after the Greek, Latin, French, and other tongues. Hubbard, an American historian who wrote about 1680, had this among other passages on the subject. If any observation be made of their manners and dispositions, it is easier to say from what nations they did not, than from what they did derive their original. Doubtless their conjecture, who fancied them to be descended from the 10 tribes of the Israelites, carried captive by the Salamister and Esarhaddon, hath the least show of reason of any other, there being no footsteps to be observed of their propinquity to them more than to any other of the tribes of the earth, either as to their language or manners. Thomas Morton, an early New England historian, refers their origin to the scattered Trojans, observing, for after that Brutus, who was the 4th from Aeneas, left Latium, upon the conflict held with the Latins, where, although he gave them a great overthrow to the slaughter of their grand captain and many others of the heroes of Latium, yet he held it more safely to depart unto some other place and people than by staying to run the hazard of an unquiet life or doubtful conquest, which, as history maketh mention, he performed. This people was dispersed there is no question, but the people that lived with him, by reason of their conversation with the Grecians and Latins, had a mixed language that participated of both. Morton maintains the great similarity of the languages of the Indians to the Greeks and Romans, as an instance of which he fancied he heard among their words Pasco Pan, and hence things without doubt their ancestors were acquainted with the god Pan. A writer, Mr. John Josselyn, who resided sometime in New England towards the middle of that 17th century, pronounces the speech of the Mohawks to be the dialect of the Tartars. He says, the northeast people of America, that is, New England, etc., are judged to be Tartars, called Samoatis, being alike in complexion, shape, habit, and manners. That the Indians are Scythians is an opinion expressed in a decided manner by Cotton Mather. He was confirmed in it on meeting with this passage of Julius Caesar, Difficilis inventur quam interficier, rendered by him. It is harder to find them than to foil them. Caesar was speaking of the Scythians, and the aptness of the language is expressing one peculiarity of the Indians in their warfare. Their sudden attacks and retreats is noticeable. Dr. S. L. Mitchell of New York, a voluminous writer in his day, thought that he had settled the question of the origin of the Indians. They came, in his opinion, from the northeast of Asia, and that is now perhaps the most common belief. He thinks that they possessed originally the same color as that of the northeastern nations of Asia. Dr. Swinton, author of many parts of the Universal History, after stating the different opinions of various authors who have advocated in favor of the dispersed people, the Phoenicians and other Eastern nations, observes that therefore the Americans in general were descended from a people who inhabited a country not so far distant from them as Egypt and Phoenicia. One will, as we apprehend, readily admit. Now, no country can be pitched upon so proper and convenient for this purpose as the northeastern part of Asia, particularly Great Tartary, Siberia, and more especially the peninsula of Kamchatka. That probably was the track through which many Tartarian colonies passed into America and peopled the most considerable part of the New World. End of section 11.